Greetings and welcome to Pinball Help. Here we are working on a Bali 35 series machine, or also a Stern MPU 100 80s era early solid state machine here. And in this case I was having problems. The start button wasn't working, and I've traced it all the way back to the connector. I tried to repin the connector, and the Molex pin I had got stuck in there. It was not the right one for the connector, so it didn't work, and I messed up the connector, so now the pin is inside of it. So I'm just going to repin this entire connector. I've got a new one right here. I figured I might as well do a video on repinning connectors, because this is really a fundamental thing that needs to be done with pinball stuff, and it's not really that difficult to do. So what it basically involves is you've got your connector here, and these pins will break off and get corroded over time, and they just won't work from being connected and disconnected on the board. So you want to replace either the pins in the connectors or the pin and the connector itself. Now there's typically two sizes of connectors that are used in most pinball machines: the .156 inch and the .100 inch. The smaller connectors are the 100s, and these are used here. You can see here in the board. And if I move it a little bit down, you see right here, that's, let me point this up. This right here is a .156, a little bit larger connector. So you see the smaller ones and the larger ones. The larger ones are used on most of the Bali Williams machines. The smaller ones are used on the early Bali solid state machines. So back to working on this. First step, whenever you're messing with any of the connectors, is always to document their position. And you'll want to notice if there's a key being something in the connector, a little pin being blocked, so that you can kind of tell where it needs to be plugged in at. So I see 3 pins, and then a key, and then the rest. This is a 16-pin connector. So pin 1, 2, 3, and then there's a key in pin 4. You also want to note that not always all of the keys are being used. In this case we've got 1 and 2, and there's nothing in 1, 2, and 3. And then there's a key, and then we've got several of them empty, 3 of them, several of them, 2 of them empty, and then 3 more. So the best thing to do is to take a picture of this. Now I've already started to repin the connector, but normally you want to take a picture before you do anything. So you take your camera and you zero it in on the connector, and you make sure that you've got a good thing that's in focus that shows every one of the pins. And while you're at it, you might as well take pictures of other things, other connectors and stuff like that. It's a great backup in case you get confused and you're not sure where you've got everything. So, now the tools that we use. Obviously you have connectors here. You can get these from a bunch of different sources online. They're called Molex connectors. And the pins, here are the pins. And you'll see it says 100 or .100. There's also a metric equivalent to it, which escapes me at the moment, but these are the little connectors. You have your crimping tool, and this right here, you see these two things at the end. There's an A and a B. One is for crimping the actual conducting part of the wire, and the other is where you crimp around the insulation. So you crimp twice onto the pins before you insert them into the connector. And there's another tool for removing existing pins out of the connectors, and that's this tool right here. It's a little stainless steel thing, and I recommend ordering one. You could probably use some little small thing, but it gets stuck in here a certain way, and once it's in, then you should be able to extract the connector. The connector should just come out smoothly. Of course, sometimes these connectors are broken, so it's no easy way, but there you go, see? And then now we've pulled the entire connector with the pin out. We can examine it, we can decide if that's damaged and we want to replace it or not, or just stick it into a new connector. I'm going to probably end up repinning all the connectors just to be sure, because I think there's some oxidation on these pins and they're not making good contact. So now I got to note, this is number 3. There's number 1 already in, here's number 2, and here's number 3. So I gotta not get those mixed up. So the first order of business will be to repin this number 2 connector. So I'll open up my Molex pack of new pins. And this would probably be a better video if I had I'd done it like on a bench with some sample things. But I'm actually this is usually the way you end up doing it in the game. So let's get this all set up nicely. And you got to position the wire in the crimper where it needs to go. Oh. And this takes a really kind of a delicate hand. This is good. This is going to be the boring part of the video where I have to kind of carefully make sure I've got this thing placed properly. See? So. It's kind of tough to lean over and do this. Let me get a good look at this. And I'm sure some people will have all kinds of suggestions on the best way of doing this. Some crimpers are obviously going to be better than others. Oh, you know what? This tool is designed for 1/5/6, so it's a little bit bigger, so I'm going to end up using the B for both. That's what I'm going to do. So I can't crimp on the large size, I have to crimp the small size. There we go. Okay, so now that I've got the insulation around it, I want to take a good look at it. Make sure that I've got the other part in properly. Line it up. Crimp. There we go. So now we've got our one pin done, and you want to inspect it, make sure that there's a really good connection there. And then this just gets inserted right into the thing, and when you push it in, it'll click, and you'll know that it's done. Just push that in, click, and it's done. So I'm going to basically run through that with all the pins, repin this connector, and then we're going to try it out. So that's basically how you repin a connector. It doesn't matter. Gottlieb System 1s use slightly different kinds of pins than these, but they're all basically the same. The power connectors and all the other cables and connectors, there's about 4 or 5 different size pins. .156 is the most common one for the modern games. These early Bali and Stearns are using the .100s for the small connectors. You can find these crimping tools anywhere from $30, $40 on up to $100 or $200 depending upon how fancy you want to get. The little removal tool is about $15, something like that, and all the little extra pins and stuff are pretty cheap in the connectors. So it's always a good idea to do that because these connectors are often the main source of the most common glitches in pinball machines. So repinning connectors is a good idea, and it reduces that one less point of failure. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.